На этой позитивной ноте мы дальше продолжаем свою работу. Наш следующий спикер представляет страну, не менее интересующую мировую общественность, в том числе и Казахстан, своими выдающимися достижениями в сфере образования, как уже отметил профессор Паси Салсберг. Мы приветствуем на нашей конференции профессора Oon Seng Tan из Национального института образования Сингапура. Является он известным экспертом в области подготовки преподавателей, когнитивной психологии и проблемно-ориентированного обучения. Господин Тан будет говорить о ценностях и компетенциях, необходимых педагогам в 21 веке. Господин Oon Seng Tan, please, floor is yours. Thank you. 30 minutes. Уважаемые коллеги, из-за того, что мы начали чуть попозже, я попрошу быть терпеливыми. Мы должны послушать 30 минут господина Oon Seng Tan. Я думаю, все согласны, да? Спасибо.
Warmest greeting, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Story was told about the great professor Albert Einstein who once took a train. He got his ticket, he went up the train, and then the train conductor, as usual, came to check for his ticket. But it was winter and Einstein had many pockets, so he couldn't find his ticket. And then he turned to the train conductor and says that, you know, I bought my ticket. It's just that I just don't know where I placed my ticket. And by the way, my name is Einstein. I work as a university professor. And then the train conductor says, oh, you are that famous professor. And he says, sir, don't worry about your ticket. So the train conductor went away. A few minutes later, when the train conductor walked down the aisle of the train, he found that Einstein was still very busy looking for his ticket. So he went up to the professor and said, sir, don't worry about your ticket. I know who you are. Einstein looked at him and says, I also know who I am, but I don't know where I'm going. Does education today know where we are going? And I think this is a difficult question, given the complex world today. Can what we continue to do in education really prepare our young people for the next generation? Can you hear me? Should I use this? Yeah. So I came from the National Institute of Education. Singapore, like Kazakhstan, it's a young nation. You are 20-something plus, right? We are 52 years old. 52 years ago in Singapore, you would just see swamps, mudland, very little things happening there. But today, we have made some progress. So this shows that young countries can do it. So I'm here to affirm many of the wonderful things that you are doing. The National Institute of Education is part of Nanyang Technological University, which by QS ranking is the first in Asia and 11th in the world. Education in Singapore has its legacy with our founding Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, and he defined education in a very simple way for everybody. He says, the role of education is very simple. Number one, a good man. Number two, a useful citizen. And this is where I find that your theme of values, well-being, innovation comes in very timely. Until today in Singapore, our emphasis on education is the same. Number one, a good man. The values, the character, the disposition. That is the number one goal of education. And a useful citizen, giving the child the competence that allow the child to contribute to the community, the society, and the world. The founder of my institute, Dr. Ruth Wong Hai King, makes it very clear that education is not just about the mind. Foolish is the teacher, she said, who thinks that you can educate a child just thinking about the cognition. Education is very much a matter of the heart. Herein lies the foundation of our education system. We believe that education is important for nation building, for values creation, and for the preservation of society, and of course for innovation. What is the good man? And I think this is where we talk about not just skill sets, but values set, character, integrity, dispositions, diligence, interpersonal skills, social-emotional skills, self-directedness. Useful citizens. We need to help our citizens to have the fundamentals. Not easy for young countries like Kazakhstan, like Singapore, young countries, especially where we have societies which are multi-racial. Just like Singapore, it's a multi-racial society, right? Multi-ethnic society. Well, we need to provide them with fundamentals. We need to provide them with language. We need to provide them with the mother tongue, where the roots, culture, and values are well taught. So 21st century skills for us is very critical. In Singapore, we are very familiar with this diagram, where at the core of the 21st century skills is what we call the values, the key values, especially the social-emotional values. And around it is where we talk about the inventiveness and building outcomes of self-directedness, outcomes of active citizen contribution, concerned citizenship, and being a confident person. These are some of my books that I have written, which describe the Singapore system as well as the kind of psychology that we are going through. And I will present this to the Institute at the end of my talk. When I talk to the ministers in Singapore, I tell them that in our teacher preparation, the first thing that we emphasize about is values. The second thing that we emphasize about is values. And he will tell me that the third thing you emphasize are values. I say, absolutely. But what about values? You know, in Singapore, when we recruit teachers with very high content capability. In other words, we make sure that you have a good degree or a very good high school performance scholastically. But the moment they come in, we tell them that you are not a mathematics teacher. You are not a history teacher. You are a teacher of the learner. So the number one value that we place in our teachers is that, you know why you are a teacher? You are a teacher because you, more than anybody else in the world, care about the learners. Like a doctor who is an expert of the patient, the teacher is the expert of the learner. And that is why you learn all you can about developmental psychology. You learn all you can about how best children learn in order to help the learner. So the number one value of the teacher is that the teacher believes in the learner. The teachers care about the learner more than anybody else in the world. That's why you are a teacher. That is why you are a professional. That is the number one value. What about the number two value? The number two value is the personhood of the teacher. What I sometimes call the teacher symbolism. And we tell the teachers who come to us, you know, the teacher epitomizes learning in the society. The day the children do not respect the teachers anymore, the society will suffer in learning. So the teachers have to have a very important role, a role model of learning himself, a role model of character, a role model of standards. And not only that, a teacher's identity is one where teachers are proud about teachers. Teachers are proud about fellow teachers. We build one another. So that's the identity, who you are as a teacher. So the number one value is the learner. The number two value is the teacher's identity. The number three value is that the teachers do not walk alone. The teachers belong to a community. Teachers are community builders. We tell our teachers, welcome parents to come to the school. Talk to parents. Work with parents. Because education is not just about children in school. Education is a community thing. So in all of that, through these values, right, we prepare our teachers. So the learner, the teacher's identity, the community. And teachers for tomorrow are shapers of character, creators of knowledge, facilitators of learning. architects of the learning environment. I was just speaking to one of your colleagues who has been working on school curriculum. And we're saying that the curriculum today is not just about learning outcomes. The curriculum today is about the process of learning, the environment of learning. So the role of the teacher changes in the 21st century. You not only need to know about the learners, you not only know about teaching, but the whole of these practices have to come together with a good reflection, right? So it's about teacher professionalism, program pedagogies, practice, and perspectives. It is very important that teachers have these multiple lenses and multiple perspectives, because how you see the world is going to influence how the children see the world. And as I always say, teachers are key to nation building. You know, our new generation today, they have a world of their own, a digital world beyond geography. But we got to remember that if within the education system, we do not act as a custodian to the roots, the society, the cultural values, our children will lose them. So that is very, very important, the values sets. So I'll just quickly share with you some of the things we do. So our teacher education program, teachers go through a lot of programs where they work in communities, where they do service learning project, for example, even working with foreign workers, teaching them the language and things like that. So the service learning becomes a very, very key part in the whole teacher preparation, because that's how they are going to influence our students. And very, very often, the newspaper always report of how our teacher educators, how teachers influence and impact communities. Right, so one key thing for growing a successful nation is always growing a strong teacher symbolism. When your teacher factor is strong, your schools and your country is in good hands. Okay, I will not talk too much about this. So it's very important, I just want to say, to attract continuously some of the best people into education. And we are able to do that in Singapore. And we are very thankful for that. And as I said, and I think Pasi noted, that in a lot of the policies, it is not about tests and all that. It is more importantly about what is the teacher symbol? What is the teacher calling? What is the teacher professional development? What is the proactive approaches? How do we have good teacher leadership? Trust, inspiration. These are the key aspects of the teacher preparation. I'll say now a bit about competencies, the useful citizen. I think we hear all this a lot in all these reports. You will see changing roles of teachers, design of learning, students as knowledge builders, learning spaces, design thinking, experiential learning, failure learning, personalized learning, peer feedback. Nowadays we have crowd learning, video games, analytics, you name it. But end of the day, while we talk about all these competencies, how do you get them into practice? What is the shift that teachers need to see? Well, I summarized it very simply into two big categories. Let me go back there, which will ask you to now just speak to your neighbor and tell whoever is next to you, that what we need is big and mad learning. Can you turn to the one on the left and right, say big learning and mad learning. You may not remember many things that I say about the competencies, but I hope at the end of the speech you remember we need big learning and mad learning. So what about the big learning? A lot of our curriculum today and the way we were taught and what teachers do is that we spend a lot of time working on developing critical thinking skills that are mostly analytical thinking skills. So analysis is breaking things down into small parts and then having good inferential logic, right? Now we do a lot of that in schools. And in this country, which is good in science, mathematics, technology, we do a lot of that. But in the world today, to solve problems, you need more than analytical thinking. You need to help children from the young, students from the young, to develop big picture thinking. Helicopter view, seeing the bigger picture of things. So it is not just about breaking things down to a small part, but always taking one step back, giving them the bigger picture of things, giving them the real picture of things. So it's big picture thinking. Big picture thinking is very different from analytical thinking. Good problem solvers learn to see interconnectedness, learn to have the bigger picture of things. And that is why when you shift in your pedagogy, you ask yourself this simple question: am I just doing more analysis, or am I helping people to see big picture? How do we design big picture thinking? I am a champion of problem-based learning. Since 1995, I advocated problem-based learning in a big way. And that influenced the shift in the polytechnics and subsequently in many, many places. Because when you solve a problem, the thing that you really need is to collect information to see the big picture. Because if you cannot see the big picture, you cannot solve the problem. Even with the best tools, you may be analyzing the wrong things. So you need a big picture. So big picture thinking is very, very important. Secondly, I is inquiry, which is what you all are doing a lot now. And basically inquiry is questioning. In our classroom, I think we are all not so good at asking questions. Our students are not so good at asking questions. So the big shift here is how to ask questions. How to ask questions. A simple question like clarification. Simple clarification. Do you clarify? Do you always do a summary of things when you talk to people to understand, right? Questioning, clarification, probing, reasoning, questioning assumption, questioning the questions, inquiry. So inquiry is not just about some activity where people just start discovering things. Inquiry, at the essence of the pedagogy, is the teachers modeling, asking good questions, helping students to ask good questions. That is the inquiry. And the G, I want to tell you, is grit, right? Sorry, let me go back again. Grit, and I'll say more about it. Grit refers to the emotional resilience that is needed. I'm going to say more about that. But let me go to the math first, because you'll be wondering, what is the man, right? What is the man? So big is big picture thinking, inquiry, grit. Mad, we need more madness. Number one is multiple perspective. A lot of our textbook, a lot of our curriculum teach people to prepare for tests, which tend to propagate a one-answer thinking, a monolithic view of the world, black and white, one way. We need to understand perspective. The complexity of the world simply means that I need to know what are all these scenarios, what are all these perspectives. I may not agree with all of these perspectives, but I need to understand where they come from, why is it like that, why are people looking at things from that lens. That is how you will have empathy. That's how you have receiving of people. So multiple perspective is important in terms of especially the social, the cultural perspective. A come from the Greek word. Your language is very much linked to the Greek. Aletheia, which means truth, reality. We need learning to be authentic. Students today will resonate if you can bring real-world situations into learning. And this calls for teachers to be very attuned to what is happening in the real world. Real-world learning is key. Contextualizing, creating context for learning. That's the real-world learning. Real-world values. And the D is very important shift, which is from didactics to dialogos. Admittedly, most of our educational system is still highly didactics, meaning the teacher-centered. Even if you look at data on good performing system and so on, the good performing system have good didactics. Poor performing system have poor didactics. Good didactics, what I simply mean is that you may have one teacher with 40 students, 70 students, but when the teacher explains something, there's clarity of explanation. There's real visibility of the content and so on to the students. But that's not good enough. to deal with the 21st century scale of complexity, we need to shift from didactics to dialogos, to dialogue. In other words, how do we have conversations where students learn? How do we have group work that students learn? Group work is not just students working in group and having some cooperation, distributing the tasks. That's not group work. Group work is where students really learn to hear from other students, their perspective, why are they seeing things this way, and truly, through conversation and reasoning as a group, learning to see things in a better way. So it is about dialogue. Not only that, dialogue is also about learning to be able to differ. How can I differ ideas from you? How can I quarrel with you over an idea and yet not break the friendship with you? Negotiation, and so on. So dialogue is very important. And if we are able to shift from didactic to dialogos, this is also what the young generation is doing, because they're talking all the time. How do we then capitalize on the iPhone, whatever, the chats that they have, to make sure that it is about productive learning, right? So, just a little bit more elaboration. One of the advocates, one of the ways in which we can learn big picture thinking, as I said, is problem-based learning. I won't have time to give you details on that, but basically the idea is to use real-world problems to shift towards using real-world situations for learning. These are some of the things I have done. You can link problem-based learning to e-learning platform today, which is very powerful. Problem-based learning and creativity, and of course, enhancing thinking. But we have to be balanced. It does not mean that when we shift towards inquiry, then you now have just inquiry based all the time. We got to be smart in understanding how the brain works. The fact is that the brain works very well by patterning. So don't throw away what was traditionally good in didactics and even some amount of memorization, because don't oversimplify. I think some people don't understand the Asian perspective, the more Asian and central perspective of learning. Encyclopedic information was passed from generation to generation through songs, through poems, through good memory. And those sort of memory involve a lot of creativity, because to remember encyclopedic chunks of information, your brain needs to think of ways to link things up. That's not rote memory, because the brain learns very well by patterning. So we should continue to have strong routines and base our children to be able to have powerful routines to capture encyclopedic things. But that's not enough. So when I was in Washington, D.C. giving my distinguished lecture, I told them that we need to have both. Asian communities need to shift a little bit more to have from the learning by imitation, modeling, to open-ended learning. Because the brain is not only highly stimulated by patterning. Neuroscience tells us the brain is also highly stimulated by novelty. That's why you and I always want to learn something new. And that is where the second axis come in. And that is where inquiry, problem-based, and the more engaged pedagogies come into play. In other words, more immersion, more inquiry, more inventiveness. One thing I want to mention, what else, is about confidence, right? Again, something we are trying to learn. I think the Scandinavian countries, the Europeans, have more confident people, right? The ability to talk aloud their thoughts and so on. So, I was with the Minister of Education. This is Christine Antorini, you know. And basically, I was facilitating with her a workshop for the Danish educators. And my point to them was that, you know, actually, there are a lot of good things within their system where the confidence factor is there. And, you know, not to be so discouraged by the PISA results, so to speak, right? So anyway, grit. Coming to grit, I think we cannot ignore the emotional component. I am a mathematician by training, but then I moved into cognitive psychology. And in neuroscience and psychology today, we all know that lots of cognitive action has a lot to do with the amygdala, which is the emotional aspect. So in education, we tend to think that something is just cognitive. But let me tell you, more and more, we are beginning to see that the cognition and emotion is highly impacted. And that is why we want to create very positive environment for our students to learn. Positive, but not soft. Positive, but not soft. The problem with positive psychology sometimes is teachers start giving praises to all the students. But that is not about that. It's about developing the kind of resilience, that is important in learning. So, come to multiple perspectives, as I said. Very important to include the social and cultural. And the shifts here calls for humility to learn. Right? When people are not humble to learn, that's where they don't get a multiple perspective. A lot of time the world has a lot of problems because people just refuse to learn the other perspective. Right? So it is about humility to learn. It's about interconnectedness. Right? It's about overcoming unwarranted constraints. It's about overcoming unwarranted closure. Many times we bring things to closure. Many times we put unwarranted constraint. Right? Multiple perspective is about breaking these things. So I have mentioned about Alethea. Now I got to move faster. Oh yeah, this is the real world skill set you need now. You don't go for an interview. You got to do something, right? So because of time, I got to speed things up. So basically, it is about the balance. About the balance. So I would say that in the 21st century, we still need good didactics and questioning. We need environment where the teachers plays facilitative role, emphasizing process, talking aloud process, making students' thinking visible. I repeat, making students' thinking visible. Teachers are very good at making their thinking visible. But how do you make the students' thinking visible? Visible to themselves, visible to one another, right? And, of course, being a good mediator by tapping on the rich environment that is afforded by technology today. So, teacher, lead, care, and inspire. I was invited by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences because, and this was by scientists, because they were a bit concerned that the new generation was lacking in mathematics and science achievement, and the teacher's image was a little bit affected. So, because it was in Sweden, I gave them their song. I said, you are famous for ABBA, right? You all know ABBA, right? I have a dream, a song to sing. And that's what I give to them, to help us cope with anything, right? If you see the wonder of a teacher's role, you can take the future, whatever the learning curve. We believe in teachers, something good in everything we see. We believe in teachers, and we'll bring humanity with us. We'll cross the stream. We have a dream. No time to sing. But this is what I wrote for them. I have a dream, a hope to see, to help us through reality. And our destination, make it worth the while. All that you are doing, my dear friends, make it worth the while. Children of our future, youth that rise to serve, we believe in teachers, something good in everything we see. We believe in teachers, we'll bring humanity with us, we'll cross the stream, we have a dream. And I just want to congratulate NIS and Kazakhstan for your wonderful vision in education. And I believe, like Singapore and even better, you will succeed. Thank you very much.